Bifocal Chapter 28 J. I stood at the back of the cafeteria, surveying the crowd. Everybody and everything was the way it always was. Everything was normal. Everybody was where they were supposed to be. Kafrika was in place, trying to act cool and distant, listening to rap and hip-hop. Off in the back was Curry Lane. If I closed my eyes, I could almost imagine that I could smell the spicy foods that filled all of their dollar store plastic containers. Somehow, the smell of their food almost matched the music coming from Gafrika. Up at the front, as always, were the preppy girls, designer clothes, fancy sunglasses on top of their heads, hair teased and dyed and maximized, push-up bras almost pushing their breasts right out of their tight tops. They were confident, knowing those breasts were both weapons and shields to defend them from anybody daring to defy their position atop the social ladder. Then again, if they were really confident, would they need to flaunt it? Off to the side, almost out the door, sat the emo crowd, needing to eat but never feeling like they belonged, even here. And maybe they didn't, because they didn't think they did. Closest to me at the back were the Muslim girls. They sat in ranks according to how traditional they were dressed. I wondered if it had been hard for Xana to change her place on their seating chart. The Muslim boys didn't need to dress to impress that they were Muslim. A whole bunch of them wore bandanas or backward baseball caps, basketball uniforms and jeans hanging down like rapper wannabes. Others were more formal in pressed pants and collared shirts. Then there were my people, proudly occupying the tables closest to the food, puffed up, talking loud, taking up more seats and tables than their numbers would dictate, feet up, voices up, attitudes up, using their muscles and skills at sports to let everybody know how important they were. That was my spot. My table. I knew everybody who sat at those tables. They were my teammates, my friends, my buddies. I couldn't help but remember how lonely it had been when I first got to this school and didn't have a place to sit. Now I did. I had a protected, safe little haven that I could call my own. But was it so safe? Did I need safe? Scattered around the cafeteria was everybody else. The band geeks, loners trying to find some place they could sit where it at least looked like they weren't alone, the new additions, the grade 9s still trying to find out who they were, the goths, the skateboarders, the alternate music freaks, the gangsters and the tough guys and their babes, the serious students, the kids who looked like their parents dressed them, and those who looked like nobody cared to dress them, the odd little ducks, the dirtbags, the gearheads, and the heads, the druggies. It was a little galaxy, with all the planets in place. Even galaxies have eclipses. I walked along the side aisle. There were greetings as I got close to our tables. Steve was holding court, making jokes, and generally being himself again. James was beside him, Moose a few chairs down. In the center sat Kevin. If the cafeteria was the universe, this was our solar system. And Kevin was the sun. Everybody else rotated around him. Kevin gave me a little nod and took his feet off the extra chair. I had his permission to sit close. It was the place of honor. I nodded to acknowledge him, and then I kept walking. I didn't look back, but I could imagine the expressions. Suddenly there was a hand on my shoulder. I turned around. It was Kevin. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Just going to sit somewhere else today." "Come on, Jay," he leaned closer. "I know you're upset about everything that happened, but we're a team. We are a team." He smiled. "And this lunch, I'm going to sit over there," I said, pointing across the cafeteria, "with a friend." Haroon was standing against the far wall. I raised my hand and he nodded. Kevin's jaw dropped open. "You're sitting with him?" His face was a combination of disbelief and confusion. I'd never seen that look before. He always looked so confident and sure of himself. Then he smiled and nodded. I get it. He leaned in closer. "Brilliant," he whispered in my ear. "You sit with him, and nobody will suspect us of doing anything." "Haroon doesn't suspect," I said. "He knows." Kevin jerked back. Now his expression was fear. But how?" "I told him." "You did what?" "I told him." I started to walk away, and he grabbed me and spun me so violently that some of my fries flew off the tray and onto the floor. "Are you crazy? Let go of my arm or what? You're going to do something right here, right now, in front of everybody?" I suddenly became aware that we were standing in the middle of the cafeteria, and people, everybody in the school, were staring at us. They couldn't hear what we were saying, and they couldn't know what was really going on, but they couldn't help but see us standing there, toe to toe. "Well?" he asked. He sounded confident, cocky, like he was sure I was going to back down. "Yeah," I said. "Right here, right now." I said the words calm and low and slow. I stared him right in the eye, and I leaned in even closer, so close that my nose almost touched his. He let go of me. He backed off a step, smiled, and laughed. "It wouldn't just be me getting into trouble," he said. "Nobody's going to get into trouble. He's not going to tell." "What?" "He's not going to tell the school, or the police, or his family. Nobody." Kevin looked relieved for a second. "Why not?" "You wouldn't understand." "You don't understand," he said. "You're through." "I'm through with you. I'm still part of the team." I turned and walked away. Haroun was still standing there, waiting. Balancing the tray in my left hand, I reached out and we tapped hands. "What happened?" Haroun asked. "Nothing worth wasting my time on. Where do you want to sit?" "Somewhere in the middle." I followed him as he threaded his way through the tables and chairs. I knew it was just my imagination, but it still felt like everybody was staring at me. At the two of us. I hoped they were.